one of this week's Cats Whiskers TV, which will be exclusively focusing on the game in Hull on Saturday night. Aaron joins us. You weren't there. You had a lucky escape. Lucky man. Me and Paul were at the game. Wasn't great, was it?
Oh no, I had a decent dinner. But in all fairness, no, it wasn't. First period, I thought maybe we were unlucky to to go in a goal down. But I think what I want to say right from the beginning is that Hull, we're going to talk a lot, I think, about Panthers' problems, Panthers' deficiencies, but I don't want to take anything away from Hull, and I don't think we should, because Hull deserved that victory, because they turned up and played. They were the better team by a long way. We can talk about that last 10 minutes, about how we upped the intensity, and we took the game to Hull. But that's
they were too far ahead.
We're too far. The second. All right, we won the second half of the game 4-3. If you want to try and grasp positives, losing the first half 4-1 that did us, and that's all. It was just words escape me, frankly.
I suppose the thing for me is Hull have managed to pull together an absolutely potent attack this year.
Yeah.
They've actually got the secondary scoring that they've perhaps not had in previous seasons, and that shows you that having 4 scorers in the top 20 point scorers in the league, they are a dangerous team in attack. Some really great forwards. So you've got the likes of Tenler, Doucet, just absolutely tore us apart. And the thing is, our defence just could not cope with them on the night, and they were just going through at will.
Yeah, they were, and I think one of the turning points as well was the third goal, where Chris Murray clearly had his stick broken right in front of Tom Darnell, which frustrates you. Had his stick broken, and there's no call. But a lot of our players just stopped, and because they stopped, it allowed Tendler to come straight through and score. What's the first thing they teach you in school? When you start playing, play to the whistle. If you don't, you're going to get punished. And we did. And after that, it was, for a time, it was just one-way traffic that we couldn't cope with. Conway didn't have the best of nights. But to be honest, especially that second period, I think you'd struggle to find anybody who did.
Aaron, bring you in at this point. The away form for Panthers has become worrying. It's a serious problem at the moment.
Yes, it is. And I think you've got some stats to back that up, haven't you, Jono?
Well, I was looking at this yesterday. 15 away games, League and Challenge Cup. Only 5 regulation wins. However, the interesting stat from that is we only have 1 regulation win in the league this season, which was in September in Edinburgh, a 4-2 victory in Edinburgh. We haven't won in the Elite League in regulation time, apart from that one instance. And if you're defending a title with that sort of stats, you're not going to defend it.
No, my facts from the game, and if you score 5 goals in Hull, you'd think you'd win the game, wouldn't you? Really, if you went in there, scored 5 goals, you should really be winning the game, because nobody really should be conceding more than 5, hopefully. But defence-wise, look, for me, we're 1 import D down in Henley. We were short on D compared to last season with the imports, and if you look at injuries to like Stevie Lee and stuff, then we're struggling on D. So I'm not making that an excuse and stuff like that, but we are struggling, and we haven't replaced Henley at the moment on D. So we're putting extra pressure. Well, I don't know, why? I don't know, because then you're going to have to lose somebody from the forwards. You're going to have to either ditch somebody. You're going to have to maybe ditch Henley if they want to do that, but I can't see that happening, and I wouldn't do that personally. But so we're fighting you know, to get a strong D out there. But the away form, look, the first thing you do is you build your home form. You've got to be winning at home for two reasons. That's your home form, that's your barn, and it's to please your own fans.
Well, I have another raft of stats about home form. Yeah. In 13 games at home, we've dropped 1 point all season. So no problem with the home form whatsoever. You know, so why can't this relate into away form?
It's different. I mean, our rink is one of the larger rinks compared to some of the places that you go. Is it a fact of players aren't used to the smaller rinks and those smaller rink teams like your Cardiffs, like your Hulls?
Well, Hull's, it's an Olympic-sized rink. It's the same ice surface as it.
Well, a bit of both, to be fair, the ice and the building, because it's a totally different kettle of fish playing in the NIC to playing in somewhere like Fife or Hull. You know, atmosphere-wise.
Yeah, I mean, the atmosphere is much better in the smaller rinks.
And I think those types of teams, they play on the strengths of their home crowd and the atmosphere and stuff like that. But the positive of that is our home form is that strong that surely it only needs us to flick a switch on the away form and we should be there contending. Look, at the end of the day, we're not completely out of the race. It's not won already, because I think that's too premature. But yes, it's a worrying stat when you look at it like that we can't defend our title when we're away from home, because you aren't, like Paul says, you're not going to defend your title. You've got to be picking up wins on the road. And is it a psychological thing now that, you know, whenever we go away we know that we haven't won for that while, we know it's in the league, it's extra pressure? Look, we can't answer that. There's only, you know, a handful of players and a coaching staff that can answer that. But it needs to turn around for us to retain our title.
Yeah. Paul, I just want to come back to Hull for a second, because although we've waxed lyrical about how good their attack was, to be fair, for 50 minutes of the game on Saturday, their defence, and especially Ben Bounds in net, were excellent. And Nikolai Ladygin was making his Ladygin was making his debut once again for Hull, third debut. Yeah. But I've forgotten what a massive unit he was, and he was absolutely pivotal in their defence. I don't think anything got past him until then, when they started to crumble a bit in the last 10 minutes. But they were very good defensively as well. They were just snuffing us out.
But for a lot of the time, they didn't have a lot to defend against, in all fairness, did they? But you're right, you know, they looked a more cohesive unit than I've seen them previously, and maybe he's the catalyst that's changed things. I mean, you can remember as well, since we saw them, they brought Gomeniuk back again. I think it's fifth, sixth, 28th and hundreds. But you know, they looked solid. I mean, and Bounds had a good game. The only thing is that when we did put that pressure on them, and why it came so late, I don't know. I mean, it might be down to the fans starting the Barmy Army Challenge. And I've got to say that I thought our fans were sensational on Saturday night, really were. I mean, even when we were 7-1 down, I think we were making more noise than they were.
And to be fair, the Hull fans were making quite a lot of noise.
But you know, and I mean, we never. The fans never lost heart, and you know, we started that chant, and maybe that lifted our players, and I think maybe it got to the Hull players as well. Because, you know, somebody, you know, it was Sam said to me that he thinks that Bounds doesn't like a lot of noise around him, because you know, there was the game up there when we scored with our first shot, March last season, yeah. You know, and there were a lot of players, a lot of fans around him making a lot of noise. So, you know, maybe there's something to do with that. But, you know, the fans were just great. They just kept going all game. Just wish they'd seen something that could have made them cheer even more.
It was quite interesting to say about that, because obviously we'll talk about the last 10 minutes of the game where Panthers actually came back into it. And I think, given if we had another 10 minutes, I think we will probably draw on level and maybe even gone ahead, because Hull just completely crumbled. However, I was having a chat in the second interval with Jonathan Fernley, the Hull Stingrays commentator, and he says I think that Hull will take their foot off the gas for the third period because they had a game the next night in Fife, which was a conference game. It was very important.
Of course, it was our only game, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and he says the problem is if Hull take their foot off the gas, we score a couple of goals. Hull can't get the momentum back. They've lost the momentum. The momentum's with us, and that's exactly what happened.
I mean, we steamrolled them that last 10 minutes. But to quote, I think it was Captain and Tennille, it was too much, too little, too late. Yeah. But I tell you who I feel sorry for.
Who's that?
Hull's backup. Sorry, I don't know his first name. Bolton. 2 games, his team have been winning 7-1, and he hasn't got a game. When he ended, I was watching him, start of the third period. He took his water bottle out to bounds, and the way he turned, skated back, he's a dejected man. You know, okay, it probably ended up, it was a pretty good decision not to play him on for the third on Saturday night. But you know, you've got to, you know, talk about people who don't want to see backups in, but you've got to give them ice sometimes. What happens if Baum goes out and slips on the ice, let's say, you know, pulls a groin? Has he played at all this season? And he's going to go in cold, completely cold. So, I mean, all right, maybe they made the decision this time around, but the lad just looked completely dejected. I felt sorry for him, really did.
Talking of backups, Dan Green obviously came in for Neil Conway after the Panthers' Stingray's fourth goal. Dan Green came in again completely cold, and although he did allow 3 in, I thought he was quite reasonable, and that's at least encouraging that Dan Green can come in and put in a credible performance.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, a lot's been said between fans and stuff about, like, you know, backups in general and then Dan Green and stuff like that, but I think for a while now, Dan Green's, you know, when he's been called upon, he's not really let the side down. You know, like we've said many a time, backups are backups for a reason, obviously. But I think Dan Green this season, you know, he's done well when required, and I'm pretty sure that the fact that, you know, when Kaywell got injured and they brought in Conway would have, you know, maybe gave Green the hump and maybe think, you know what, whenever I do get an opportunity, I'm going to prove to everybody what a netminder I am, and maybe that was a perfect example of it. That was a great game for him to go in there. I mean, that was a very strong decision to pull Conway and put Green in, because 4-1, you know, you never know. You know,
they did score 2 goals off 3 shots on Conway in that thing. Well, what was announced as 2 shots, there's 3 shots. I thought it was 1 or 2 more than that, but still not great.
Well, I think in that sense it's a bit of a. If that was the case of you've conceded, you know, 3 goals, 2 goals in the space of 3-4 shots, whatever. Let's get him out there. Corey's got enough confidence. Everybody's got confidence in Dan Green going in that situation. But there's big games coming up, and you do not want Conway still thinking about those goals in Hull. So I think from that's where a coach gets his payment and money. You know, so in that sense, it might have been the best decision. And look, Green didn't let anybody down in that game. It was a team game. But for me, it's just we're relying a lot on a defence that is got a lot of pressure on it with injuries, suspensions, a D down. You know, it's an import D down. It's asking a lot of our D in my eyes. And unfortunately, some game they're gonna crack. They're gonna crumble. You can't expect the D to pull out every game and put in 60 minutes of top quality performance when Henley's out and we've had injuries.
Do you think D is the biggest problem for us?
Yes. In a word, yeah. You know, I mean, look at the goal scoring. That's what we scored 16 at home in the last 2 home games. You know, but I don't understand why a club with our resources. Well, I don't understand why we only went with 3 import defencemen anyway. And yeah, I know you could counter that by saying the one who will if we brought another one in, the one who would lose his place is Tom Norton, and he doesn't deserve to, because you're right, he doesn't. But it's about it's about winning games, winning titles, and I just think without that third import defenceman, we're leaving ourselves the fourth import defenceman, we're leaving ourselves too short. I seriously do, and I think we're showing that, and you know, we don't know what's really wrong with Brent Henley. You could argue all night whether that's a good or a bad thing, the club not really telling us anything, because if they're telling us, they're telling the opposition, aren't they? But not having a replacement for him, why did they let Makela go home? I don't know. Nobody really knows. But why didn't they keep him on? Because I thought he was pretty good.
Well, I'd kept Nick Anderson on myself, but
well, you don't know. You don't know what happened there. You know, he resigned. Did he resign? We don't know. But it's, you know, we keep talking about the resources we've got. If we've got these resources, if it's within the rules, why aren't we using them? You know, that's what it takes to win games, to win championships. That's what we should be doing.
Just moving back to Hull for a second before we look at some of the tweets that we had. They're a good side this season. They've given a few teams a bloody nose, and like we said, they have got one of the best. But they've got a forward line that is up there with the best in the league, without a doubt. They're currently joint top of their conference, 7th in the Elite League. Do you think they can go higher?
Well, it's a good question, really. For me, though, it's within a lot of teams, it's consistency. You know, there's no point in making a statement against, you know, the Panthers and then not following it up when you go to Edinburgh or Fife.
Well, of course, they went to Fife last night and lost 4-2. Yeah. So, you know.
Well, this is what that was. I was just, you know, building up to that. So thank you for spoiling the party. But it's consistency, and I think in that conference, as is, well, maybe not as is as at the moment, but it's a tight conference. Braehead look like they're going to probably win that conference, you'd think, but Hull on their night can beat anybody. You know, I know that sounds stupid and we've said it a lot of times, but with that forward line like we've talked about, they can, but it's when that forward line isn't as potent as it was on Saturday night. Will the D hold up? Will Bounds hold up and win you a game? Will the D win Hull a game? Not the forwards win Hull a game? That's the questions that I would ask. But I would say that, well, I think you're looking possibly 6th or 7th for Hull over the season. So I think they'll be extremely happy where they are at the moment, but maybe pushing for 6th. That would be my prediction.
Do you think Hull obviously in the quarterfinals of the Challenge Cup, comfortably in a playoff qualifying position? Do you think there's a chance? I mean, they obviously made the final four of the playoffs a couple of years ago. There's no reason why they can't emulate that again.
There's not. If they catch somebody like they did on Saturday night, then yeah, it's entirely possible.
Okay, so we'll look at some of the tweets that we got. We had sort of tweets from both sets of supporters yesterday. Just Mark Lang, who is a Hull fan, basically do say Luzon and Tenler just tore you apart, and he's absolutely spot on with that. Tom Middleton, Panthers fan, the second period was one of the worst I've seen for a while, but the last 10 minutes was ruthless. Schizophrenic Nielsen hockey, as he calls it. No, a nice one there, Tom. Andrew Warren, Panthers fan. Saturday night summed up the season to me. Can be brilliant, really are. Stingrays deserve the win.
Yeah, that just sums up the last 20 minutes in 140 characters.
Yeah,
basically, it's entirely right.
Luke Smith, who is a Hull fan, my opinion is I think Stingrays are possibly the best 3 forwards in the league at the moment, and to be honest, I can't argue against him. Claire Herbert, or Legally Blonde on Twitter, Panthers fan. Disappointing game, other than the first and last 10 minutes. Green played well considering the pressure, fans great as ever, and I think we've already mentioned that, man, but the fans were magnificent on Saturday night.
Yeah. I mean, some of the chances, especially when we were losing, the 6 more goals, we'll be having a laugh from Ant and the rest of them at the back. It got me in stitches, and at that point, to be honest, at that point, I wish I'd been murdered along with the songs that the interval act killed.
Can I just ask a very quick question on the fans, just while we're talking about the fans? I think the fans, home and the away games that I've been to, have been fantastic this season. And look, I think any Panthers fan would realise we're going through a struggle, and not the kind of Panthers that we're used to seeing. We're used to winning games at a canter, especially last season. Do you think the fans as a whole sort of accept that this season just isn't at the moment the season that we expected, and we're going to have it with the recent success that we have, or do you think fans are, no, we should be playing better, we should be where Belfast are, we're the Nottingham Panthers? What's your view on that?
I think that winning the league has calmed the fan base down a lot. And I think instead of expectation actually being higher, I think it's now actually lower. I think defeats are accepted, and you still get the dissenting voices. You still get the fans who shouting out and calling out the players, calling out the coach and whatever. But I think there's almost an acceptance of it, which never used to happen before. I do think winning the league, in some ways, probably dampened the fan base down a bit. It's like the Holy Grail has been reached.
Paul agrees.
The Holy Grail has been reached, and I've seen us win the league. Now I'm happy. You disagree?
I think we are the Nottingham Panthers. We should win every game. I'm joking.
There's a team 39 miles up the motorway. I think you belong to them with that attitude.
Well, they are a joke. Yeah. So that did you mean that bit, the joking bit? Yeah.
Play to him, not me.
My Twitter was on the account was on at the beginning. Send them there. I need the followers. I've lost it. No, I think you're right to an extent, but I think there is the certain that matter. We shouldn't be losing to Team X. We shouldn't be losing to Team Y. And the end of the day, and I know I've said that a lot tonight. To quote Gary Moran, it doesn't say beating Panthers beating the other team on the tickets. It says versus. And the only thing that actually matters when you're out on the ice is the players and the coaches. The money don't matter. Nothing else like that. The expectation doesn't matter. It's one team versus another, and if one team's better than the other, they're the ones who win. So, but I think there are because we've won so many titles in the last 3 seasons. To quote Scooby, 7. Yep. That is going to create its own expectation. We won 3 last year. Some people will think, oh, we're going to win 3 again because we won 3 last year. Don't work like that. You've just got to get behind what's on the ice. And I know I never practice what I preach because I'm moaning about players constantly, but for the camera, that's what I'm saying.
All right, well, I think we'll leave it there for this part. I think it only goes without saying to finish off, well done to Hull, because they completely and utterly deserved the win and totally and utterly tore us apart.